Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 302. And in today's episode, we'll sit down and talk about employee engagement. So, anybody who's ever listened to my podcast already has a pretty good indication that I am a really big fan of employee engagement. So, these are the experts out there. We need to help them to make things safer. We can write awesome risk assessments, and we can do SOPs, and we can set up training, and we can do all that stuff. But you got to get input from the folks. You could be way off. I could read a manual, and it'll say, "Hey, here's the following things. Here's the hazards, the chemicals, whatever." Great starting point, but let's not think that that's the end all be all. The people who run it, they are the true experts. So I've done everything I can to get people involved. Some people, of course, do not want to be involved. So when you find these folks, don't force these folks to be involved. You're going to find a certain percentage of the population out there, and they literally want to show up, work, and go home. And that's okay. That is not something that's to be looked down upon, of course, obviously, and all that stuff. But what we want are those people who want to be engaged out there. So, and when we think about the way that we're going to engage folks out there, there's a couple pretty obvious ones. We want safety inspections. We want that because we also want them to have ownership on things too. So we don't want it where we walk through, find the same things over and over and over again, because that means that there's really not ownership out there. We want folks, of course, obviously, to have a sense of pride in the workplace too. So when they walk through, let's say that you're going to look at chemical storage, like whatever the issue is. When you have somebody who owns it, they take a lot more responsibility. They feel better, of course, too, about this whole process because they know they are in charge, not me saying I'm going to set it up, and it better be set up the way that I want, and I'm going to come through and check it every so often. And if it's not set up the way that I want, there's going to be some trouble out there. Now, I'm not saying that we let them set it up in an unsafe way. We let them set it up where they are the owners. They are the ones who track things. They do the ordering. They do the storage. They do all that kind of stuff then. So that's just like a simple example out there. So when we think about employee engagement as a safety multiplier out there, they are your eyes and ears. So they also have to know when you bring something to them, you're going to address it. It may not be overnight. You stick it on a list. I know that that's not things that people want to hear, but you can't work on everything at all times. But you got to stick it on a list. You tell folks, hey, I'm going to circle back. I need to come up with a plan. We're going to work together on this because it can't be, I've given you the monkey, you just solve it now, because we haven't created that sense of ownership. You're solving the issue together, not those guys saying solve it. Hey, I'm busy. I got stuff to do. Solve it together. You know. So this is something that I really like to focus on, and I can't say that I've always done a perfect job. I think I do a really good job now, but I've also been doing it for 30 years. Circle back, find these people, because there's going to be times where you think you could get something done in a couple of days. You can't. Something else came up. You also have a personal life. There could be issues in your life that pop up, and you need to go back and find that person and say, guess what? It's not done. Or there's something that, of course, is going to be a much higher risk, and you say, I hate to do this to you, but I need to bump yours down on the list and work on other things that have a much more higher severity if somebody is hurt. The consequence and all that good stuff. Then, and I'll circle back to yours afterwards. So there's going to be some times that it's uncomfortable, but this also shows people that you didn't blow it off. You're communicating, and that no matter how serious that their thing is, it has to be addressed. Their hazard that has to be addressed. That's awesome and great, but you have to work on like what's the highest potential, the highest severity, all that kind of stuff, and they just may have to wait a little bit, and that's okay because you can't do everything all at the same time then. So also when we think about it, they once it you have their trust, and you got their trust by communicating, you got their trust by building trust too, you know. You certainly can't say, yeah, I'll get to it. And then when they circle back in X months, you can't say, oh, that's right, you said that. I never put it on that darn list. Tell you what, I'll stick it on the list now, because now you came back a second time. So you must be serious about it. So while we're out there, we're building these relationships. So as a young man, I thought everything was about compliance. I walk through and I say, hey, I saw the following things wrong. Let's get this right. And that's awesome. You can make some pretty good progress. But eventually you're going to plateau because you don't have the buy-in from the people. You don't have ownership from the people because they don't view themselves as being owners in safety. They view themselves as in, oh, here he comes. He's going to come in, tell us everything wrong, leave again. Great. Now I got to go fix this and I got to fix that. Once they are the owners, what they're doing is proactively doing everything they can to make sure. Let's not ask for perfection, but they're doing everything they can to make sure things are really running good, running safe, running right, all that good stuff. Then, so use these folks out there, and not in an awful way, but we're using them as help us with eyes and ears. They also hear about other things that maybe folks won't speak up about then. So I've only had this, a couple times happen to me, but I have had folks come to me, probably not in the last 10 or 15 years, but previously, that what they would say is, um, I want the following things fixed. Help me out to do this, but I need you to make sure that you're the one who found it. I didn't come seek you out. I didn't, because if the supervisor ever knew, I could get in big trouble for this. So again, you're winning that trust. You would really hope everybody was on board, but that's not always the case out there. So when we find these employees who want to be engaged, you know, we want to do everything we can, build that trust, keep that trust, because all of us know that there's been a time in our life where maybe we didn't follow through, we lost somebody's trust. That takes a long time to get that trust back. Just like it takes a long time to earn that trust the first time then. So at this point, I think I'm just starting to drone on. So I'm going to go ahead there and sign off for today. I want to thank everybody for listening on this whole journey. What I want is that I want folks to have a better safety program than I had. So I'm hoping to try and impart some lessons learned, some difficult things that took me 30 plus years. I'm hoping it's going to speed up the learning process that others have out there. You're going to hear some different ways to solve issues and problems, of course, and all that stuff then. So, and if you get any value out of this, please help me out by going to, like whether you listen to it on Apple or iTunes or whatever platform is out there. So, help me by leaving a 5-star review. So, I'm not trying to make any money out there. This isn't about that. What I'm trying to do is just, the more I can get this information out there, and the higher the ratings are, as bad as it sounds, the more visibility you get. So thank you for joining me. Have a safe day.